the next story that we're going into here is about like the Man of Steel ending. Like this has kind of been like a bit of a controversial thing for people who have seen like the Superman movie. Um, about like Christopher Nolan specifically not originally wanting the ending where spoiler alerts, just
Yeah, make sure you clarify that because
anyone who has not seen Man of Steel, just cover your ears for like I don't know, like 5 seconds or something. Whatever. For the ending where Superman kills Zod at the end, like where he just snaps his neck. Nolan originally wanted an ending where Zod gets sent over to the Phantom Zone and he's still alive and everything. Do you believe that Nolan might have had like a better idea, or do you think that something like like this being a Superman reboot, it needed a bit of that darker twist to it?
Okay, see, I don't see it like that at all. First of all, I am a defender of Man of Steel. I went in with no expectation. I thought that the trailers looked good. I thought that they were going to do a very good job with it, but I still left my expectations at the door. I left very happy. For what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the dirty ending, let's say it's a dirty ending, because it's not a nice, clean wrap-up like all these other superhero films have done before this.
Right, yeah.
It's not just, we're going to make it this nice little tight bow, and it's this very own movie, and if it doesn't go any farther, then it doesn't really matter much. That's not what happened here. They left it with a dirty ending, and I like that, because it's really not a comic. It was a subpar comic book film, a fantastic science fiction film, and an awesome graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
It, as a comic book movie, single standalone issue sort of thing, doesn't really work out so well. As a science fiction movie, it is pretty awesome, actually. It does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
As a graphic novel, though, if you take it from that approach, it is actually a splendiferous film, because it's going to lead into something more. As I said it, splendiferous.
Word of the day. Word of the day.
and see, like, that's funny because, like, I'm going to add that I haven't actually seen the movie, but from everything that I've learned from other people, it's allowed me to come to some of my own personal conclusions. For instance, it's the question of continuity. Like a lot of films, they kill off the villains, whereas in canon standards in certain comic books, the villains aren't so easily killed off.
Right.
So having that put in a movie standard, it's like, so how do you really want to make the next movie for this, or the next?
Well, see, the thing is, I think that they figured that, honestly, A, they can sacrifice one for the sake of the character in the long run.
Yeah,
and and B, this is the reboot of the entire DC universe. You can lose one as long as it's not Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Darkseid, like one of the major villains. Yes, those are all Superman villains. That's not the point. But as long as you don't lose one of the major players.
Which leads me to another thing about, like, Clark Kent or Superman's character in the movie. For instance, this being sort of a pseudo-origin film, it's like, would you not think the entire test of his entire career was summed up into one personal moment where he had to make a decision doing something
and
that he didn't want?
And that's basically the stance that's been taken with that was the idea behind it. Like, this is the defining moment of this character, and after this, then it's never the same.
And see,
it's a completely different. Now, here's the thing: in the movie, if they had built up to it a little more, like if they had added a little more emotional resonance with a few things, there's definitely, obviously, places they could do it. I thought the tornado scene, while fantastically done, one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, needed more. I'm not gonna say sappiness, but it's more like real man emotion. Like some good, like underlying. Like, I don't know, it was good, but it could have been more.
Yeah.
It was good, it was wonderful, but it could have been more. And there were a couple scenes like that throughout the movie defining, this Clark Kent Superman character that could have been done like that. But they were still good. It just wasn't as good as it could be.
Yeah. I mean, that goes to that whole thing. I know this is a slightly off topic, but that goes to that whole thing about how people think, like, Superman is sort of like the symbol of being American. A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because
even push that. I know, like, they still push, like, the idea of Superman being like the all-American hero.
Boy.
Yeah. And people forget that he's an alien from another planet.
I think that's the point. But I mean, and that's one of the reasons why Superman was originally created, is because it was right there, 1930s, immigrants, New York.
Right.
You know, that was the reason why it was created.
Yeah.
Kind of like Captain America, like he was like kind of like a product of his time.
And
right.
adding a personal touch, like he's saying, adding a personal touch to his character definitely would have sold it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I really think, you know, with the end of this movie, the way they ended it, with the destruction, basically demolishment of Metropolis, let's just call it what it is.
Let's not get...
Has happened a couple times when Superman loses his cell phone.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and being his first time in a real fight, I'm going to give this film the benefit of the doubt.
Rookie mistake.
we will, because for all of its pluses, there are a couple faults, but it leads into a good Justice League. And that's the thing.
From what I'm understanding, it was overwhelming odds as far as like who he was fighting. So it's kind of like he wasn't just fighting one person. You know, he was fighting a lot more than yeah. So it's kind of like
it was the
worst day of your life times 10. You know?
I mean, there was like an argument made that like in the Avengers movie, like how like, you know, they still didn't allow, like, even though it was a full scale invasion as well, like probably even more than in Man of Steel, really, just because of the number of forces that were involved, that they didn't allow the city to get like apocalyptic levels, like how Metropolis got to.
Latin.
Okay, you know, actually,
Ground Zero.
I have something to say about that because you brought that up. Well, you have to understand with those two movies, for instance, Superman was on his own. He had to make his own decisions. So half the time, even if they were terrible decisions, he had to make them.
This is coming from a whole Marvel fanboy here too.
Yeah.
Like let's put the record straight. This man is all Marvel. This is coming out of his
Marvel DC, right?
Captain America has already been through a lot of crazy things up to this point. So it's like him leading a team of people with superpowers. It's like, okay, I don't just have regular people at my disposal. I have people that I can really use. So it's natural for him to be able to delegate a plan to contain this mess because he is of a military background.
Well, and look at it this way too. Let's say that the next film, please let this happen. I will wait. I can't even begin to tell you. The movie starts. You know, DC Comics. You know, the logos flash and whatnot. Yeah. You're crawling up through the cave, you know, and whatnot, and you see the back of dude's, you know, mysterious head with a giant computer screen. And it's got like the destruction of Metropolis, you know, blah blah blah, aliens playing. You already know who it is. You know, like you do a world's finest right off the bat. Superman, Batman team up. I mean, that's how it should roll. You know, can you imagine? You know. Oh.
And in short, what he just said, that brings up another question. At least with, you know, the Batman series, it's just like, you know, how would they really lead that into, you know, a Justice League film? You're gonna have to assume that Batman is already an established character. You cannot do another origin film. It will not take place in the Nolan universe. They've already said that. Yeah. That is a firm solid. You jump right in. You don't think twice about it, or you get to the end. What was supposedly be the end of the Superman movie, where Superman flies back to the Fortress of Solitude, and you see a batarang stuck in the keyhole. You know, like you know. I mean, this is how it should, please let this happen. Please, someone out there listening. and considering how they could build into it, it's kind of like they already set the blueprint for what would be a good follow-up to, like, because Man is Steel, hands down, from what I understand, it's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good follow-up to something as big as what would be a Justice League film. Right, and you don't even have to launch Justice League first. Like I said, world's finest, if you really want to make sure to make your bank, both Batman and Superman fans are gonna find out, because now you have two people that aren't really liked by the populace at this point, and they know that they're trying to do good. Right. So, you know, that would be the whole frame for that. Not to mention, you know, at that point you can have an extra hero show up at some point. Yeah. Say a Green Lantern, say a Wonder Woman show up on the scene. It doesn't have to be Justice League. When they get to the end of it and realize, you know, their full potential, you know, well, who else can we gather? You know, that kind of. I think it would be awesome. It would be really cool. And in the realm of good ideas with that, kind of like how Marvel did the television show for, you know, Shield. Yeah, that's a really good idea, because not only can they introduce characters for a possible movie. And that's what I'm saying. Like, one thing that hasn't really been talked about is they introduced Star Labs.
They've introduced LexCorp, which everybody knows the Lego and the Wayne Industries, but they haven't really talked about Star at all. And Emil Hamilton is right there the entire time. I mean, he is one of the major features in this movie at one point.
Yeah.
And they didn't even mention it. So, I mean, it's one of those things that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's something to build on. It's something to look to for the future.
Yeah. Right. And not getting completely off topic, but it's just like the same thing with Marvel films, man. Like, they introduced so many other, like in Iron Man 3, they introduced AIM, which is something that they didn't really play too heavily on in a lot of other movies, but now you at least know they're an organization, even though they executed Iron Man 3.
The seed is planted for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's something in the future coming.
Oh, yes, it's definitely there, man.
So still kind of keeping on with the whole comic book movie stuff, Robert Downey Jr. signed on for Avengers 2 and for Avengers 3. His original contract ended after Iron Man 3, so there was this whole hubbub on whether or not he was going to still play as Iron Man for future movies. Whether Marvel was going to just move on without him, like, maybe even recast Iron Man, God forbid. So, I mean, like, at least it's kind of like solidifies him, like, for being, like, for Avengers, like, 2 and 3. He's going to be 50 years old when Avengers 2 comes out. Keep that in mind. How long do you think he has, like, to play as that character?
Okay, let's be honest here. In Avengers 2 and 3, how often is Tony Stark going to be on screen? Tony Stark, not Iron Man. We're talking CGI Iron Man. That kind of, anybody can be in that suit. Nobody cares. Like, as long as when the mask flipped up, Robert Downey Jr. is underneath. I mean, here's the thing. Being 50 years old, I don't want to see any more of Tony Stark's life necessarily.
Yeah.
We get it. He should have come full circle now with Iron Man 3 at the end of it. And let's see Iron Man.
And see, at that point, like what he's saying, because with Iron Man 3, the way they did that story, it's kind of like, okay, so what you're telling me is, like, I really don't have to know anything else about Tony. That's the way they did it.
They completed it, and that's fine. That's great. He can do the voice forever.
It was definitely more of like a Tony Stark story as opposed to an Iron Man story in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, they wanted to make him look more like he knew what he was doing without the suit, because technically in the first 2 films, they made it look like he relied...
He is the suit.
He is the suit. Yeah, he relied more on using the suit, whereas, like, Tony Stark is a really, really smart person. He doesn't need the suit to figure things out.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he is getting older. We know that. He doesn't have to continue to do the stunts as Tony Stark.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Tony Stark is in the lab.
Exactly.
Iron Man is in the field.
Yeah.
And that's a given.
And if you're going to do him where he's the same person in an Avengers film, it's kind of like, okay, you definitely should play off all of the characters at this point, not just make him more of the lead. Yeah, because it's like, that was one of the cop-outs for the Avengers film, but they kind of had to give it a star role, if anything. Because, we all know Captain America is the leader of the Avengers. Like, that's like an understood thing. You don't have to know the entire Avengers team to know that. But what they didn't really know is that, like, Tony Stark and Captain America are 2 completely different elements. As far as, like, one's the brawn, one's the brain, so to speak. So, like, Tony, there's an entirely different level of, I don't know what the word would be for this, but...
It's just a leadership style.
It's a leadership style, man.
It's a bit of like a struggle between them in that sense.
Yeah. And who's to say that Captain America won't get his play in the next Avengers film? Where they make him more of like a star role to do that, because we all at that point know that Tony can do his thing, but why not give the other characters some play? Because the Guardians of the Galaxy is like supposed to be the intro to the next Avengers film, so to speak, I believe. So yeah, who knows, at that point.
And there's also 2 more Phase 3 films that they've booked for, but they haven't released what it is. And word on the street is Doctor Strange and Black Panther.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's been kind of like the rumors lately. I know, like as far as getting more of those like characters on board, like especially with like Doctor Strange to introduce more of that like mystical, magical element.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which that's kind of goes into an entirely different arena of Marvel characters, because it's like Doctor Strange teams up with a lot of characters that aren't so much on like a major scale. So that opens up, because, all Marvel characters, the major ones, all remotely live in the same area. So it's kind of easier to play off of that kind of thing. They could totally open up like a Hell's Kitchen kind of thing with Daredevil, which they already said most of the reboots of the older films are going to happen anyways. Like, though they already secured one for Blade.
And my thing is, like, I want to see more R-rated comic book films. Because there are quite a number of characters that can pull off. I'm still a fan of the 2004 Thomas Jane Punisher. I don't care what anybody says. That movie was awesome.
Mind you, they could have done a lot of things differently about that movie, but
I don't care. It was still a good movie. It was a fantastic film. And have you seen Dirty Laundry?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Dirty Laundry is good. Yeah,
it's
I remember I saw that.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to it below for that.
Should have. Let me put it like that. But it's still Thomas Jane playing.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
It's still good.
Okay, that's good that you guys both have a great opinion on that movie.
Yeah, it's a short film. It's only like 5 or 6 minutes long, but it is a definite must-watch.
Okay.
It's on YouTube. Yeah. I mean, like, I would go on record like to say that Dirty Laundry is the best iteration of the Punisher in terms of like film.
Definitely.
You know, outside of comic stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
The next topic I have here would be, it's about like The Rock, like potentially being on board for Terminator 5. There's like a big rumor going around about that. We already know that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a part of it as well. This is, I believe it's going to be like the second time that The Rock and Arnold Schwarzenegger are going to be working together. I think the last time they worked together was for like a small bit thing. So this would be like the first full-fledged movie with them together, if it's true. Any thoughts on like The Rock possibly being in Terminator, or like what kind of role he would play in Terminator?
At this point, is The Rock just the go-to guy in Hollywood now? Like, did he get that job? Like,
Viagra, basically.
The Wizard of Oz next? Like, what? I mean, The Rock in Casablanca.
He's supposed to be Johnny Bravo in the Johnny Bravo movie.
Steel Magnolias. He can show up next. God. You don't have to be in everything, The Rock. You can say no. It's okay. We'll forgive you.
I will say this. I will say this much. You know, all joking aside, with it being a Terminator film, especially, you know, I didn't like the last film. I kind of thought they could have did a way better job.
Wasn't the last one like the Rise of the Machines?
Yeah.
The one?
I know.
So more in the future and everything with Christian Bale.
More,
I watched like 30 minutes of that and fell asleep.
And see, and that says a whole lot, because it's like, I felt like the execution of that film could have been a lot better. You know, Christian Bale's character wasn't bad, but it's just like the way they could have did that film was, they could have did it more to the point where a Terminator film. It was like they rushed it a little bit. With this newer film, especially The Rock being in it, you know, it's The Rock, but at the same time, Dwayne Johnson is not a bad actor. And with that being said, with it being a Terminator film, maybe there's an element there that he can add that, you know, that would maybe make it a little bit better for people that are into the franchise. Because as far as I'm concerned, the franchise stopped at 2 for me.
I would honestly rather them just start over.
Yeah.
I mean, just start over.
And
like
the whole thing.
Build this mythos and do something else.
And see, that,
RoboCop's about to do it.
Yeah,
we'll see what.
Yeah.
You know.
And see, that's like, I hate saying it this way, but, you know, he's right in a sense. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger is getting older. And having...
Yeah, he's like 60-something now.
Yeah,
At
it's
least,
like...
yeah.
they've been doing the franchise for years, man, so it's kind of like, maybe having some new blood isn't a bad idea. Because it's like, you can give it new life, go in it with a completely different direction, and it's just like, that's fine. I don't care about that, but it's like trying to do the same idea.
Well, the story's so confusing at this point anyway.
Nobody knows who John Connor's real father is. Dude, I've read so many different forums about that.
Let's just do it all again. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't want
Just start fresh.
They created a time paradox about who his father is.
Yeah, they created a time paradox about a time paradox. Time paradox.
Paradoxception over here. I would imagine that The Rock is gonna like play as like some kind of soldier character, like, you know, just judging by like, you know, how all of his other roles have played out. Like, I imagine he would play as some kind of soldier. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is if, like, I don't know, if they would change the tone of Terminator to be more lighthearted or more comedic than it should be because of The Rock. That's like my only concern, really.
Would, you know, I can't say one way or the other. It would be one of those things. I want to read the synopsis.
Yeah.
I want to read the synopsis. Once I read the synopsis, I'll know one way or the other. I'm probably still gonna be like, nah, but who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, because you brought that up, have you seen the movie Snitch?
No, I have not. I saw Snatch, but not Snitch.
Okay, well, that's actually a more serious role The Rock is playing, and it's actually based on a true story. I haven't
Oh,
seen
that's the one with like the kid in jail, and he goes to be the drug runner.
Oh, I know which one you mean. Yeah.
Whatever his generic character requires him to be.
Well, it's based on a true story, and it's a very serious role. I haven't seen it yet, but it's gotten a lot of really good reviews. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like maybe The Rock does take a serious role more seriously than he does a comedic role, because we all know that he can be in something funny because he doesn't really have to do much. But in the sense of it being a serious role, it's kind of like, well, if these people like it, he obviously must be a pretty good actor if that's the case.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Give me hope. Just give me some hope.
I just.
That sums it up right there. That sums it up. All right, so that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys had any other topics you want to bring up or just talk about real quick, or.
Oh, but we will be back next week.
So this is Dave and
Quan.
And Quan.
Ross!
And Ross. From UltraMegaDeathRay.com. We'll catch you guys later.
Later.
See ya.